Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be having another go at the 3 marker challenge, but this time it's MerMay edition. As in my last video, I will be picking the colours using Jazz's Arty Games app. It is by far the easiest and simplest way to pick colours in my opinion. I've obviously added all my Copics in and I chose 3 colours and I just clicked go and then I had to make an artwork with whatever I was given. So as you can see, the colours I've been given are YG67, which is like a mid-green, G21, which is quite a light green, and then W7, which is a fairly dark grey colour. It's pretty lucky that I got these colours, because I actually have all 3 of these in the actual ink refill, which is great, which means I could not run out of ink, which was the problem I had with the last 3 marker challenge I did, so plenty of ink. Not going to be a problem. After randomising which markers I was going to use today, I went over to check out what the MerMay prompt was. Now MerMay, for those that don't know, is, well, it's kind of in the title to be honest. You're supposed to draw a mermaid every day off the official prompt list or a prompt list of your own. It doesn't really matter, the whole point is you're supposed to draw one every single day. Now I've not done MerMay at all, so this is the first one I've done. I've just really been too busy to sit down and do a drawing every single day for MerMay. I will link some videos down below of people that have either done it every day or some people have done like 30 mermaids in one drawing. It's really cool, so I'll link those people down below and you should go watch them because they're really interesting. But me personally, I jumped into today. I was so excited when I saw the official MerMay prompt for today, because the colours I got, I was like, I don't really like green, I don't really know like what, I hope the mermaid prompt isn't something that's very obviously a certain colour. The prompt was dinosaur, and I was like, yes, because in my head, I think of dinosaurs, they're green. That's just the like stereotypical green, like one of those stegosaurs or a brontosaurus, the long neck thing. That's what's in my head. So I was like, yes, I can actually, this works. You know, when things just happen to come together and it's like, oh, how is this happening right now? So I was just so excited. So the idea for this drawing is obviously it's got to be dinosaur based, and I was thinking, okay, what are dinosaurs to me? And I was like, what makes a dinosaur? And I was like, spines is the first one. Like spines, dark colours, they are like these almost mythological creatures at this point because they lived so long ago. So I thought I'd really lean into specifically the spines because I thought that would make her look very dinosaur-esque. And then I also wanted to make sure that she still looked like a mermaid, not because I was originally going to do like a massive long neck and make her look like a snaky long-necked mermaid, but I thought I wanted her to still look fairly classic mermaid, so very feminine up top, and then obviously the sort of fishtail, but then the spines would come in to have the dinosaur element. I also decided, because I was doing a green mermaid, it instantly made me think of Gamora from Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy and Marvel in general. And she, even though she has elements of like happiness to her, she's quite moody and she's quite badass. So I thought I would try and incorporate that into the pose. So I thought for the pose she'd look quite like ready for action, almost is the way I can describe it. So that's why I chose the pose I did. So she's like attack mode, ready to like go if she needs to. So just kind of like incorporate that into the drawing, and I think it came out quite well, to be honest. So after I'd sketched her main like body and what she was wearing and the way her fins were, I realised that I'd done like her main shape really off centre of the page, which I don't even know how I did, it just ended up that way. So I thought I was originally going to have her have quite short hair, so because to me if she's like in warrior action mode she wouldn't want long hair in the way, but as I did her off centre I figured I'd give her sort of long wavy hair and have it cascade down the side of the page that was like gap like. gap like that had a gap on it, so then the whole piece is just balanced a bit better off. But I still gave her what I'd call edgy, so the side of her head is like shaved really short, and then she's just got the long hair down one side. And because I did that, I then thought I'd give her a little elf ear, because it then just makes that area like there's a reason she's got her hair the way she is. She wants to show off her elf ears. I thought it was really cool. When I've drawn mermaids before, I try to stray away from them looking like they're wearing clothes. So normally, like what would cover her chest area, this is to make it obviously safe for work. She'd have scales or something that would cover like the boobage area. But for this one, I figured it would actually be better to give her clothes, because as I was limited in the colours that I was going to use, I needed to be able to break up the drawing into sections so I could create as much contrast as I could, because I was only using the 3 colours. I still tried to keep it in keeping with the theme, so I kept it simple. I didn't want the clothing to be too much of the focus of the drawing, but for example the bottom of her like boob tubey thing, I added little like pearly type thing like dangling off her. I just thought they'd leave like a nice little addition instead of just like here's a piece of cloth covering the boobage. And for her tail, I really wanted to give her like spines and stuff, but again, because I didn't have very many colours, I didn't know exactly how I was going to do that. So instead, what I did was I made the top of the tail where it reaches her stomach like little spines, so it's like part of her, but it's also separate. I don't know if that makes sense. It's just because I was trying to think of a way that I could show all the different elements of the design without them all blending into each other, being the same colours. By the way, guys, that sounds so stupid. That sounds so YouTubery. Anyone who's watching this that is previously seen my other content, what do you think of the different camera angles? It's the same camera, I'm just moving it between different parts of the drawing. I just want like the video to be more interesting than just like one static camera focus for like every aspect of the drawing. So if you like these different camera angles, let me know. If you've got any tips for getting good camera angles, let me know those too, because I could use all the help I could get. Anyway, let's get back to the drawing. So since I did the last 3 marker challenge, I've actually picked up one really good tip that I didn't really utilise last time, which was the colourless blender, like how to actually incorporate it into 3 marker challenge. So as you'll see, it becomes really useful later on. I also did some swatching off camera, just trying to figure out how the 3 colours would work with each other and how they'd work with the colourless blender, how they worked on top of it, how they worked putting it down first, all that kind of stuff, just because I didn't want to get into the drawing and make a few mistakes, and I didn't want to not utilise what I had in the best way I could. For me, the skin is always a really big focal point, so I always end up doing that first. I wasn't quite sure what technique I wanted to use. I first had the colourless blender and then I didn't like the colours on top of it. So I chose her, well, it's technically her left hand, because it was a nice little controlled area. And if I messed anything up, I could just go over it. But it kind of worked. I sort of just ended up going over and over it. But the colourless blender did come really in handy when I wanted to do like faded highlights and like where the sun was shining, like the sun shafts. Because obviously she's underwater, so there's not going to be a mass amount of light areas on her because she's not directly in the sunlight. But there would be some elements of it, particularly if she was near the surface. So you'll see as I get further on, there are some light elements, but there's not a great deal of them. But the ones that I did do, Colourless Blender was super useful for it. Even though I've been inspired by Gamora, I was playing with the idea of using the warm grey as her whole skin tone, not specifically just flat that colour, but using it as the majority of her skin colour and then like blending it out with the colourless blender. But I really wanted her to make her look like an actual creature, not just grey. I thought that would be a little bit boring. So to make her look like an actual sea creature, well, / dinosaur, I decided to stick with the green that I'd originally planned. I also made the spines on her tail and her arms green. Yes, the ones on her arms technically end up blending more into her skin. However, the ones on her tail end up being a nice contrast because I did the tail in a different colour. I tried to make her skin tone a mixture of both greens because I feel like in my last 3 marker challenge it looked too separate. It looked too separate for me. Each colour, it looked like I'd done a paint by numbers but with markers, so I wasn't overly happy with it. But this drawing, I wanted to look intentional, so that I wanted to do lots of blending. I wanted the colours to fade into each other, and by doing that I knew that the skin had to be green because the 2 of the 3 colours I had was green, so to get the most shading I knew I'd have to use those. I made her eyes really dark grey and then lightened it up using the colourless blender. Normally there would be a lot more depth of colour in the eyes that I do, but because of what I was limited to, I decided this was a better way of doing it, because then just the addition of the white gel pen accents would make her eyes look 10 times better. I next did her fishtail and her boob tube / bodice. For this I went with the grey because it would contrast really well with the green of her skin. I also knew that because I was going to use a lot of the colourless blender to blend out the warm grey, that I could give the tail a lot of texture, and instead of doing like actual scales, you just see this textured surface, so it would give the same effect, but honestly with a lot less effort because I didn't have all the time in the world to do this drawing / record it. I worked on the tail specifically a lot. Like the boob tube seemed to be over and done in like a couple of minutes, and then I swear I must have spent the best part of an hour doing the tail. I just couldn't seem to get the shading right. I didn't know, like, because it's not legs, I didn't know exactly where the shading should be, so I just kind of went over like where's my light source, or where's the small amount of light coming from, and just went from there. But I worked on it and I worked on it, and I originally was going to have it a fairly light colour, and then the more I worked on it, the more I realised the darker it looked, the better it seemed to look. I think this is just because her skin, even though it's a green dark colour, it's still a light green, so having the tail be very dark really contrasted very nicely. And also this meant that when I came in with the colourless blender near the end to add loads of texture and like little spine marks, because it lifts the colour, I could put it down multiple times in the same place and get it really light, and then in other places only a few times, and I could get this really nice tonal difference all throughout the tail. When it came to doing her hair, I did a similar approach that I did with her skin. So I took the left side of her head, which was like short and shaved, and used that as like a trial area to see how I could create the sort of colour I was looking for, which I was going for this muted green, so it's similar to her skin, but also not, because it's not her skin, it's her hair. You see a lot with animals and stuff like that, their skin and then like any kind of fur, it's all like one shade of colour, so that's why I chose her hair to be green, whereas I could have very easily done it grey, but as I've done the tail in grey and I just learned how difficult that was to actually get any kind of real tonal difference, I figured it was best to just stick with the 2 greens I'd had because I was set up to do tonal difference. I first went ahead and sort of not outlined, but made the areas of like where her hair would like curl, I made them in like the darker greens so they'd be nice and defined, and then I went under where I knew the shadows would be in the same green. I'm not doing this so that those areas are gonna be green, but more so I can plan it out in my head before I actually dive into it. After defining where I wanted the shadows, it was pretty much just a case of rinse, repeat, you know, use the light colour, use the darker colour to make them blend, use the even darker colour to emphasise the shadows, use the colourless blender on the light areas to make it even lighter, and it was just rinse, repeat over and over again. I do really like the way her hair turned out. It's probably not very realistic into where the lighting was, but I really wanted her hair to have this duality to it where it was part of her, so the same colour, but it also was separate from her, which is why I used the colourless blender in a different way than I did with her skin. Because with her skin, I tried to stay pretty true to where the light would naturally hit elements of her, but with her hair I really wanted the curls and the waves of her hair to be very prominent. So for the colourless blender areas, instead of doing where the light would hit, I just kind of went where the curls were strongest, and this meant them look much more 3D and much chunkier. To make the elements of the drawing stand out better, I went in with my black Copic Classic because it's got a really nice bullet nib on it, and I went round the whole drawing, and then I specifically isolated the mermaid's body from her hair so that it would stand out a lot better. One of the best things an art teacher ever taught me, and it's something so simple, but if you're designing a character, they don't just float in the void. They're always in something, whether it's water, a landscape, a cave, they're always somewhere. So even if you don't draw the whole background, you should always allude to some element of a background. So as she was in water, and I'm not drawing all of water because I don't hate myself, I just decided to do some cute little bubbles just to show she was actually like in somewhere. To finish off the drawing, I went through with my trusty white gel pen. I added some accents to her eyes. I added some accents to the little beads on her top. I then added a few very selective highlights to where the light would hit her the hardest. And then I added some to the bubbles just so they stuck out a bit more. But other than that, I really didn't use the gel pen much. I didn't want to rely on it too much because I feel like the last time I did the marker challenge, I feel like I relied on it a bit too heavily, so I really wanted to scale it back for this drawing. I really enjoyed doing this 3 marker challenge, and especially being able to combine it with MerMay has made me really happy. And I really love the outcome. It's actually really interesting because I drew a mermaid in a similar pose last year, and it's great to see how far I've actually come in only a short time. If you liked this video, please give it a like. If you really liked it, consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!